Previously on agentpalmer.com, like climbing a stairway to heaven, becoming Led Zeppelin doc takes its time to showcase the band. Imagica is an epic tome worthy of your time, and I promise that Sarah very much is the ray of positivity she was on the show. This is the Palmer Files, episode 154, with Bryan Tuk, who's here to bolster the rhythm section with his drums, his law degree, and his musical educator self. Are you ready? Let's do the show! Hello and welcome to the Palmer Files. I'm your host, Jason Stershik, also known as Agent Palmer, and on this 154th episode is Bryan Tuk. As you're about to hear, Bryan wears many hats, works in many roles, and is always busy. He's a drummer, a lawyer, a teacher, a producer, a volunteer, and that's just the beginning. During this episode, we discuss Bryan's path from when he first picked up the sticks to graduating law school, with enough tangents and conversation to cover just about everything in between and beyond those 2 points of reference. From here on out, you'll hear us discuss the drive to help creatives, connecting with an audience, teaching and learning, the sorry position of the arts and music education right now, and much, much more. But first, remember that if you want to discuss this episode as you listen or afterwards, you can find all related ways to contact Bryan and myself in the show notes. You can learn even more about Bryan and his creative projects at thehouseoftuk.com. That's thehouseoftuk.com, or for his legal work, tuklaw.com. Link in the show notes. Don't forget, you can see all of my writings and rantings on agentpalmer.com, and of course, email can be sent to thepalmerfiles@gmail.com. So without further ado, let's find the beat and keep the rhythm. Bryan, I know a little bit about a lot of things you do. So in an open world where you're not necessarily in one place, if I were to say, who are you? And I'm going to now list all the things I know, like you are a lawyer, but you're also a drummer and an artist and an entrepreneur. Like, there are all of these things. If I were to say, like, well, just give me one, like, what is Bryan?
Well, if I had to say one thing, what that thing would be is I'm someone that helps creative things to happen.
Okay.
That's not really a job. That's not really an occupation.
Well, but it's a noble cause, I would say.
I hope so. I think.
Well, look, I've spent the latter part of this podcast, maybe from like episode 40 on, telling people to do whatever it is that their thing is. Now, a lot of the creatives I have on this show tend to say, I wish I had started sooner, or they just say, you know, if it moves you, do it. You know, if you want to write the thing, if you want to record the thing, or, you know, whatever, just do the thing. And I think a lot of people out there would probably be better off if they did. So if there's more people like you, and I think I fall into the category with you, I've helped a lot of people facilitate their creative things. Mm-hmm. That's better for everybody. But how did you get here? I mean, obviously this is not, I mean, it's easy enough to say I help, but you know, that's not where we never start there.
Right. No, that's a great point. So, the thing that I have done the longest is I have been a drummer and a musician since I was 11 years old or 10 years old, when I really got the bug to start, you know, banging on things, chairs and tables.
Was it always drums? Was it always percussion?
First, yes. And then I took piano lessons for a number of years, you know, as all small kids do. And, you know, that has also been a part of my journey. And I know people are listening to this going, Jesus, why can't this guy give a straight answer? So so what I am, I at my core, I guess, is a drummer.
Okay.
However, as I've gotten older, I realized that people who are creative don't really consider doing other things. So if they want to be, if you're a guitarist in your gut, you just play. You learn to play and you play in bands, uh or play for no one. Maybe you just are somebody that has gear at home and records. It's very easy to record at home now.
Yeah.
Laptop or a tablet or a phone, even, for God's sakes. But I have found that if you want, concerts don't happen on their own, festivals don't happen by themselves, and someone has to be, a catalyst
Yeah.
to make those things happen. And sometimes, I've found myself over the course of my professional life going, I must have a screw loose. Like, no, but why am I putting myself through all this anguish? But the result is a concert happens. There are a room of happy people. There are a room full of people who maybe have connected with something in the air. We could talk about that in a little bit.
Yeah.
And I think accessing. I have an acquaintance of mine, and I'll call him out, Paul Heron, painter from Easton, incredible artist. He uses the term accessing the sublime.
Okay.
That in a conversation with him, he said that, and it hit me like a ton of bricks. And I've always hung on to that. That if you are, if you're a musician or you're an actor, I suppose. I've never done any, drama. I've never done any stage work or anything like that. But I suppose for any live performer, dance, comedy, acting, you name it.
Yeah.
Once you connect with the audience and everyone's riding the same wave of energy, it really is an altered state. And the only thing I've thought about this a lot over the years, the only thing that I can analogize it to is a runner's high, if you've ever had one of those.
Yeah, well, I mean, as a runner, no, I've never had like that's I run for other reasons, but like I'm a bit jealous when people talk about the runner's high. Like I don't really feel that, but I have been on a stage playing music, and I have felt that kind of we're in this together. This is not just me playing and you watching. Like somehow we're one, or we're a group. And but I want to go backwards first real quick. So you were a drummer and I started on bass, and for some reason it feels like these rhythm section chops from the beginning set us up to help people in the end and later in life. Like, I don't know what it is, but I don't meet many lead guitarists or singers that tend to be as helpful and maybe like with producer or director or founder credits than I do run into drummers and bassists who have that same, well, this needed to get done, so I did it, or so I helped, or whatever. Like, it feels like that. I don't want to say specifically it has to be the rhythm section, but it definitely feels like that's a part of it somehow.
I've never thought of it in that way, but I don't disagree. I think you're onto something. That never had occurred to me.
Yeah, I just always run into more of us, I guess.
than
the others.
Okay, so just to sketch out, I think I have to sketch out the rest of the answer very briefly so it makes sense to people who know me, because some people know me as a musician type, some people know me as a lawyer type. Okay. They both can coexist, despite what people in my professional past may have thought.
I mean, dude, but I'll interrupt real quick. Like,
Go for it.
when people find out you're a lawyer who is also a drummer, like, is that mind blowing to people? Is that kind of what you're getting at? Like, oh my God, like a lawyer who's not stuffy, like a lawyer who can like.
Well, it breaks the narrative to some extent, depending on who the person is.
Okay.
So it's interesting. So you have a blueprint of, or an archetype of what you think an attorney is. There's somebody that's concerned with status. They want a big house. They want a shore house. They want to drive a BMW, etc., so on and so forth. And to a large extent, there's a lot of folks out there that fit that profile. Nothing wrong with it. I used to be suspicious of it, but it is what it is. That's cool. If you're into that stuff, God bless.
Okay.
It just wasn't me. I'm not a golfer. Standing around for 5 hours, it drives me. I'm far too. It makes me uneasy. Okay. Actually, I'm a terrible person to vacation with. It's awful. Also, I will readily admit.
I'm just like you.
But if you have an interest outside of the law, now I'm looking at it from the perspective of the legal establishment.
Yeah.
If you have a hobby, that's fine. If you're into bird watching or fixing up old motorcycles, great.
Okay.
However, if you're professionally competent at that other thing, that's a problem. Oh. So if you're not only a bird watcher, but you've published, let's say you've published 3 or 4 books of photography that are of animal, bird photography or books on that topic, and they are professionally competent and you could earn a living in that other role. Or let's say you're not into fixing motorcycles, but you in fact maybe you have a repair shop as a side business.
Okay.
That could support you. Most professionals I know, it makes them uneasy, whether they say it or not. They don't care for that
because you have is there some envy here? Like, oh my God, he got to do 2 things.
I don't really know. I think when you're an attorney in a law firm with other attorneys, see, most law firms, let's rip the lid off of some stuff. Sure. This is going to be cathartic. Most law firms are designed as they're a pyramid. So there are a few people who, and I'm not disparaging anybody. I'm just telling everyone this is how it works. It's not, maybe it's not that different than a big company, I guess. But the law firm structure for most, I would say 99% of the industry, is generally a pyramid. So there might be a few people at the top. Maybe they founded the thing, and they've earned the right to be at the top because they founded it. Like they've worked it for 20 years, 30 years, whatever it is.
Yeah.
All the attorneys that come in, the new people, a percentage of their earnings get funneled up to the top.
Okay.
So in other words, the more the term is leverage in the legal industry, boys and girls. So the more people that you can lever, the more money the top partners make.
Okay.
So that's why expanding in a sustainable way is so important if you're at the top of the pyramid, because you've got more people to lever, more money flows uphill or flows up to the top, however you want to think about it. Yep. And there's nothing wrong with that. You're getting me at a good point in life. 10 years ago, I would have been judgmental about that. But, things are what they are.
Yeah.
And there's no sense in getting resentful
but it also like sounds like that not only is that the structure and you have to be careful how you expand and who you bring in, but I think the reason you'd say it makes people nervous to have another thing is because there's an amount of leverage that you have on a new attorney who wants to move up, that if they have a side business fixing motorcycles or, publishing books on bird watching, the leverage doesn't like that. What's the threat? Like, oh my God,
Correct.
you'll never make it higher up. You'll never make partner. It's like, well, that's fine
Well,
because I have this other thing.
because the I have an answer.
Okay.
And the reason for that is you want everybody at the base of the pyramid pulling as hard as they can in the same direction 7 days a week, if
7.
if possible. 6 or 7. Yeah.
Okay.
Because uh professional services, whether it's accounting or law or whatever, it's not scalable. That's the problem with it. That's the Achilles heel of the legal industry. It's not a scalable business. I can't develop a widget or an app and then go sell 20 million units. I only have 2,000 hours a year that I can sell.
Okay.
And all of my people might have 2,000 or 2,200 hours to be billed a year would require chronologic, from a actual time standpoint, you're requiring people to be in the office basically 12 hours a day times 5.5 or 6
Okay.
in order to hit that target. And of course, that's tough to sustain. So that's what you want, if you're at the top of the pyramid, you need people at the base of the pyramid to be pulling as hard as they can, as long as they can, because again, we can't scale hours. It's you only have a finite amount of them.
Yeah.
So anyway, so back to the creative thing. So I decided like 10 years ago when as I was turning 40, I decided if I didn't go out on my own and be my own boss, I was never going to do it.
Okay.
Like I was going to blink and be 50 and then, you're at a different place in life. So I went out, I started my own practice. I've been solo ever since. I don't have employees. I don't have an assistant. I don't have a scheduler. It's just me. It's just me against everybody, the economy, time, you name it. And by virtue of doing that and having total control over my schedule, I can then devote more time to creative things, whether it's music, whether it's promoting concerts, whether it's creative writing, etc.
Okay.
So I started a teaching studio. I've always had on and off 1 or 2 students, drum set students primarily. And in this is like 2016, 17, I started thinking, this could be a viable business where we live is kind of geographically right in the middle of 4 school districts, and there's a big potential market.
Yeah.
How many, and really it's a micro business, but it sustains us.
Okay.
It pays the rent, it pays for the car and all that stuff. So just like any small business person, when they're trying to figure out what the heck they're going to do, you look at what the potential market is, you try to identify who your ideal customer is, and you try to define them as specifically as you can.
Yep.
And in going through that exercise, I realized, okay, if I had X number of students at Y monthly revenue,
yep,
without getting into the numbers,
yep,
that would keep a roof over our heads. Are we going to have a house in Stone Harbor? No. Are we going to you're not
going to have a second house.
We're not going to have a second house. We're not going to drive Porsche 911s or anything like that. But it's from a psychological standpoint, I think it's a much healthier way to live, because I know I'm contributing to the lives of other people in a positive way.
Yeah.
And just as I look back, like I remember my first drum teacher, Henry Robinson, played in the Air Force Band, was a Curtis Institute.
Wow. Okay.
Graduated from the Curtis Institute in Philadelphia. And I remember those lessons like vividly. And he was kind of this figure that just not a father figure or nothing like that, but just like he was like your favorite baseball coach when you were in T-ball or high school sports, or the high school football coach that kind of gave you some things that stuck with you. So when you were later on in life, you would remember back to,
Yeah.
first thing is got to be prepared. Like whatever whatever
Yeah. I mean,
whatever
I
the
still have
lesson they did.
I don't see now. I can't remember which coach, but one of my cross country coaches was like, if you're on time, you're late. If you're early, you're on time. Right. And that's been a thing that, like, I know some people in my life are like, why is he always early? But like that was drilled into us at that point, and like it's stuck through. Like I've not forgotten that.
100%. And I think there also with the and I know what I'm about to say is going to sound trite, but with the way the arts curriculum is generally handled in public schools, it's not given the same, in my opinion, it's not given the same footing in the schedule or funding that it ought to have in terms of developing a skill set in students that they can apply to other disciplines. So,
Okay.
like, we want creative people.
Yeah.
They solve things, they solve problems, they innovate new services and products. Maybe they're not playing a concert to 50,000 people, but they might go into software or medicine and they might figure something out that conventional thinkers missed.
Sure.
So I view, sort of on a macro level, I view the drum set really as a vehicle to teach creative thinking.
Okay.
And it just happens to be drum set. It could be guitar, it could have been anything else, but drum set's what I got, so that's what I'm going to use.
So where we have to go back for a second. So if the
I'm
drum,
all over the road. I
no,
apologize.
that's how these things go. If the drum set enters your life 10 or 11, when do you decide, like, I think I want to go to law school?
Yeah, so that was I fell victim to, I don't know what you want to call it, the suburban, the middle class suburban expectation. You go to college, you get out of college, you're going to meet a nice girl or guy or whatever your thing is.
Yeah.
You're going to settle down, you're going to buy a house, you're going to get a dog, and you're going to have, 2.5 children or whatever the thing
Yeah.
is. And I fell for, like everybody else, or everybody else that I knew, that seemed to be what they were doing. And I got out of college and I thought, geez, I better do all the stuff. So, which I did. And the law school thing was part of that.
Okay.
And I thought, okay, let's get a respectable job here, and let's see. Yeah, my oldest was born, a year after I got out of law school and got my degree and passed the bar. By the time all that happened, maybe like a year later, my daughter was born, and then we were in, family mode after that.
Okay.
So that's really like, it's really, the establishment thing kind of was a detour. It just happened to be very lengthy.
No, that's fine. So what was the bachelor's degree in before law school?
Business.
Okay.
Let's see. I went to Westchester University. I was a music education major.
Okay.
At the time, it is not like it is now. The job market, that is. So at the time, there were many more graduates than there were jobs.
Okay.
It was bad. This would have been around about like 91, 92. And anyone that was of my age will be able to back me up on that. Nowadays, they're looking, public schools are looking to certify, there are alternate certification programs. So even if you don't have an ed degree, you could become a public high school teacher rather easily, because they need good people to fill those jobs.
Yeah.
Because it's a hard job. It's not, like a lot of my friends are public school teachers, and it is a tough gig. I don't care what anybody says. And I know how people that don't work in the public sector view public sector employees. They get the summers off and da. Listen, what goes on during the school year is not something that everybody can navigate.
Oh,
I mean, as a job,
I
it's
have
tough.
I have no problem admitting that I was not a great student. Like if you had me as a public school teacher and I didn't like you or we didn't connect in some way, you needed the summer to recover from teaching me for, whatever the school year was. So I get it. Like it's not easy. I will say though, like music education, like I got lucky that I was in a place where, I picked up the saxophone in 5th grade. I picked up the guitar on my own, but there was a guitar class along the way somewhere.
Okay.
And I was in all the bands with, I switched from alto sax to tenor sax at a certain point, and then I was in all the bands, but I had those opportunities in my public school. Like I could be in jazz band and pep band and marching band and concert band. And, those were all options to me. And I know that like, as things get cut, I'm just thinking like the generation behind me and the generation behind them. It's like they don't. Maybe they won't. Maybe they'll get a marching. Maybe they'll be in marching band. But there's no funding for a pep band, or there's no funding for a jazz band. And so,
and often the performance I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut
no,
you
you're
off.
good.
But to your point, so when public schools, at least in Pennsylvania, I shouldn't say that. I don't know if every Pennsylvania district does this. So whoever's listening, please correct me if I'm off base. But I do know the district we live in that my kids went to this scheduling system called block scheduling.
I've heard about this. It didn't exist for me.
Yeah.
So
correct. So before block scheduling, you would have your arts segment. You'd have that every week.
Yeah.
With block scheduling, it's a 6-day rotation. So you have, A, B, C, D, E, F, let's say we're going to call each one of those days a letter. If your A day has jazz band in it, then on Monday, which is A day, you have jazz band. The following week, it's on Tuesday. The following week, it's on Wednesday. So there's going to be a week where it skips.
Okay.
And it's just, it doesn't sound like a big deal, but it's effectively a reduction in services is really what it is. The other thing that, will surprise you is that in some districts, arts organizations are responsible for their own transportation budget. So if you want to take your marching band, let's say, to a competition or to a game, that the price of the buses, this is going to surprise people, comes out of the marching bands category in the budget. So if a bus is $1,000 a piece and you need 4 buses, well, guess what? To go to this competition, you need $4,000 just to get from
and if that includes the driver and
correct. Yeah, that's labor, that's everything. So they'll have a price built into the budget, which 1 unit of bus, a bus, a driver, and fuel for 1 day is, let's call it $1,000.
So that's what? That's a sousaphone. That's a tenor, like that. These are instruments that the school could have. I mean, that's money that could have gone to instruments for the students to play, right? Like that's yeah.
So it's there are other factors that come into play that that kind of work against the arts function in public education. So this is why, connecting this up to where I started, I speak in circles. I'm sorry, everybody. This is why private music instruction is in demand, because there is otherwise if it was being adequately done in the public schools, the private studios wouldn't be around. And I'm not saying anything against any educator. It's a budget thing, it's a scheduling thing, and it's a staffing thing. Like there are not public music educators have a very, very, very tough
Well,
set of
I think it's also, and I don't want to get too political, but it's also priority, right? Like we have found a way as a society as a whole to de-emphasize arts education in general.
Correct.
Now, sadly, in this country, we've also de-emphasized science and math. Like, we've de-emphasized education, it feels like, but the arts has kind of gotten a lot lost. I feel like potentially, and I'm a I don't like saying this, but like I'm technically an elder millennial. I hung out with kids older than me, so I have a lot more Gen X in me than I do millennial. But
okay,
as a shoulder generation person, and knowing what true millennials, not elder like myself, but just true millennials had as arts education, I might have been the last
that's
generation
correct.
that actually had, not only did I have access to all of the music stuff, but I had art class where we were taught to draw and paint. Like there were things specifically that we had access to that felt like, okay, this is fine. And then as we grew up and we went to college and then we got out of college, and you hear about like younger sisters and then eventually kids of friends that have like no arts education or very, like they didn't have our access. So they would have known they were good at drawing or painting because they never got introduced to it. Right. And so that feels like, whoa, step back. And to your point from earlier, it is about a mindset thing. And I think that unless it's a priority at home, we're not introducing that to other people. So unless your parents are artistic in some way or prioritize the arts on your behalf, you're not going to have a light bulb moment in school. Like, oh, I really think I want to try the trumpet, or I really want to try and pick up painting.
I think you're right, especially on the generational thing, and your cohort being the last to have more available arts education in public schools. You're 100% right. That okay. Rings true to me. With the thing at home, it's interesting because so at any given time, I have let's say between 25 to 35 students at a time.
Okay.
This took a while to figure out how to make this work, by the way. This did not just click together. But in any event, so I'm very fortunate that there are students that come to work with me, and their parents are some of the most engaged, enthusiastic people. Like everybody wants their kid to succeed, by and large, I have found. But the parents that I interact with who bring their son or daughter to their lesson every week, and they are in my view, they are heavily invested in the fact that their son or daughter has something they're enthused about.
Okay.
That gets them excited. It's also the other thing about the way I do things with my students is there are no screens in the studio at all. So everything it's all old school. We're reading paper off of books. Like this is by design. And I know there are tools out there that will help people visualize things.
Yep.
Like there's all kinds of tools where I'll describe this and then I'll analogize it to something that maybe makes more sense. But there are websites out there where you can upload a PDF, let's say, of musical notation. And for those who don't play instruments, they're going to be like, what the hell is this? Stick with me.
I get it. Like,
stick with me.
I think there's a way, because like, so during the height of the pandemic, I bought a a very cheap electric drum kit.
Okay.
Because I hadn't played drums. I hadn't picked up sticks in a long time. Like I'm a poorly well-rounded musician. I can play a lot of things poorly and I can play a few things okay.
That's an interesting way to put it.
But the thing about this particular set was one of the things that was crazy about it was like the pad that powers the whole thing has lights that correlate to each of the different things. And so if I wanted to play around with it, I could watch that and it would say, hit the hi-hat, hit the bass drum, hit the snare. And I could follow the pattern without having to read music. And these are kind of the electronic things you're talking about, but you also don't learn to read music, which is a part. Right. I don't know. I would have to take another course to relearn to read music. It's been so long. I've been in tablatures and like, look at the chord and play along with the guitar. I haven't done music. I probably haven't read music since I picked up my tenor saxophone, if I'm being honest. And that's been 20 years. It's been decades, but there are these things that do make it easier, but I don't know that it makes it better. You're 100% right. So what I was alluding to is you can use a website-based system and it will click off the tempo, and then there will be a highlighted cursor that follows the notation in time so that it helps your eyes follow where they're supposed to be, and it'll play the rhythm out loud so you can hear it. You don't have to imagine it. It's spoon-fed to you. Okay.
And in my view, and in my experience, that does not help you. Intentionally I do things the hard way because I think it makes the students stronger. The idea that here's a piece of paper with some designs or characters on it, and you have to look at this, decode what it says, have enough context as a player to hear the rhythms in your head while you're looking at the thing before you actually play it. That's a different skill set than looking at a screen and having it show you where to go.
So I am an example in different ways of both of these approaches to learning. In high school, I learned to read music. You're in the marching band. Here's the sheet music. You're in concert band. Here's the sheet music. You got to read it. You got to play it. And maybe it was the rabbi, maybe it was just my poor grasp of Hebrew. When it came time to learn my Torah portion for my bar mitzvah, my rabbi handed me a cassette tape and just said, here's the portion, memorize it, right? Which is
just learn it phonetically.
Just learn it phonetically, which is kind of like hearing it and being spoon-fed it and not actually learning the thing. So while I could probably get a refresher and get back into reading music in about a day, I'll never, there is no refresher for me for Hebrew because I never really learned to read it to begin with.
Right. You can't.
So I have no basis, whereas musically I do. And I think that's kind of what you're talking about, like that hard way. Yeah, it's hard, but it's still in me somewhere. I know that to read sheet music, it's just muscle memory. Whereas Hebrew, I have no muscle memory. I just know that piece.
A refresher would imply that it was fresh at one.
Okay.
At one time. I'm with you. Yeah. I get it. We can't allow convenience, in my opinion. And this is a cultural thing. There's far too much of a emphasis or a premium on convenience.
I agree.
It could be consumer products. It could be whatever.
Yeah.
It makes people weaker by definition to some extent. So I don't know. I have no answer for that, but in my own little corner of the world, I'm going to try to continue the standards that I was held to when I was, when I was that age. I think it's beneficial.
I agree. I also think that there's an aspect of it that it depends on the who you are, but it also depends on how you grew up. And I think that if you're teaching people who are growing up this, that they will remember that for the rest of their, even if they end up not even if they give up the drums at a certain point, they're going to remember that. And I think that's kind of that thing where those of us who are older, who remember the internet as that quaint little thing that wasn't full of everything, you know what I mean? Like the before times, when going to the library was a 50-50 shot. Maybe you'd find something on the internet for your report, but there's also a greater chance you'd find a book that was more helpful. Those of us that remember that period of time maybe know how to problem solve a little bit differently. Not better, but differently. And I think maybe more effectively, but that's arguable.
Yeah, I think that's right. I remember, oh boy, I'm going to sound like a dinosaur, but initially whatever was on the internet information wise was not reliable in the eyes of your teachers. Like, where did you get that? Oh, well, it was on I can't even remember.
Well, maybe Alta Vista, maybe Lycos, right? Like, but I agree. Like, cause I'm a little bit younger than you, but I feel like it might've been my senior year in college, my senior year in college, that you were finally allowed to use the internet as a source when writing. Right. But up until then it existed. But like
when the establishment determined that there was a way, this is how these sources are going to be cited.
Yep.
In the Chicago style manual or the MLA or whatever you had.
Yeah.
That's when it was like, oh, all right, now this is an official. It's funny the way that works, isn't it?
It is, but it's also funny because like I would argue that if I go back to any of my papers senior year that have that citation, I would be willing to bet all those websites are broken. Like we haven't done, probably. I mean, that's a different topic is the archiving of all our stuff. But I mean, that's for another time. So I want to, before we finish up, I want to ask you about drums. Okay.
Yes. My favorite.
You obviously have played a myriad of things you've probably played them all, especially if you're a teacher now, where you've done like a kit, you've done just snare, and you've done, everything in between. Is that fair to say?
In terms of the percussion family of instruments, yes, is pretty big. I wouldn't say played them all, but yes, I've played timpani, I've played marimba, I've played vibraphone, drum set, snare drum.
Okay.
Yes.
What's your go-to? If I say, hey, Bryan, your schedule opened up, you got an hour to pick up some sticks. Like, what are you doing? Like, where are you sitting down? Like, what are you playing?
If I'm at home and there are other people in the building, I have a practice pad,
okay,
and a pair of sticks, and I might just turn some music on and just play some rudiments or groove along with whatever I'm listening to.
Okay.
The physical act of having the sticks moving in my hands is something that relaxes me. I think I've always told people, if you ever knew any smokers, when they stop smoking and they're very fidgety, they need something in their hand. There's something about that for certain people. And I think there's something to that calms people. If I'm here in my studio, which is located in a more industrial space with there's nobody around, it's the drum set all day.
Okay.
I found a rare spot where I have all my, two sets in my studio, one for the student, one for the teacher. There's some acoustic panels up to control the sound a little bit. and you could play till 10, 11 midnight out here full out with the PA, and no one is here to hear it. So if I'm at the studio, it's drum set. You have to have the whole thing. It's it that collection of things is its own instrument.
Yeah, this is why I bought an electric kit, because I was like,
Yeah, they're
I'm
a
never
great
gonna get it.
alternative.
I'm not, I understand. Like as a poor drummer, I've already started looking at more expensive electronic kits, but because I know that I'll never be able to buy an acoustic kit. My wife would never allow that to happen. I think it's bad enough that occasionally I'm like, can I play my bass without headphones? And
Yep.
like that, it's a whole different thing. But I, there is something therapeutic about getting. I'm not that good, but there is something. Just throw on some music, play along with it, get the feel for it. There's something very special, and it's different. I'll just say this: it's very different on the kit versus like holding a guitar or a bass.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, the electronic instruments have gotten much, much better. The playing experience, the feedback when you strike these mesh, like the electronic kits have mesh, like fabric
Yeah.
kinds of heads. Trying to think of the listener who might not know what the hell we're talking about. Um, and it used to be that the playing experience that you'd get was not very good necessarily. But nowadays, the even the middle of the road electronic drum kits are pretty good. Like I gotta say,
Even the low level one that I bought because I was like, just something because and just to put it into context, when we talk about playing
mhm.
and feedback, it's not just about I hit it and it sounds like it's supposed to, or I hit it and it acts like it's supposed to, and the stick hits off the drum head like it's supposed to. But like I watched a documentary on Phil Collins called Drummer First, which is an amazing documentary if anybody's listening. But
I haven't seen it, but I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
one of the things that's sad about Phil Collins is that when he would play around with the old Simmons drum heads, that attributed to some of his physical problems now,
Yeah.
because there was no give. It was like hitting something different, and just to put it out there, like I'm not a drummer, and I like watching people or having real drummers talk about like the experience of hitting like a Simmons pad, which was more like a Simmons cement wall. Like
Right.
you don't quite understand it until like they're explaining it. And it's just like, whoa, these things have come a very long way.
Yeah, the original Simmons drum pads, the playing surface was not that different than a countertop in your home, like a Formica countertop. There was no all of the vibration from the impact of the stick went right back up the stick and into your hands. So if you're gripping the sticks hard, if you're holding on tightly, that vibration goes right into your joints. Now, might not sound like a big deal. It's not like you're swinging a hammer, or operating a jackhammer or something like that. But if you're a pro musician and you're doing 150 shows a year
Yep.
and you're rehearsing and you're on those every day, it's like an occupational
Hazard.
injury.
Yeah.
But yeah, they've gotten much better. But the first couple runs of those back in the early 80s were not the best
So what,
for your
but
health.
I have to ask though, what's your music? Like if you do choose like, hey, I'm here, I'm at the studio, I can sit down with the kit. Like what's your go-to genre, band, song, whatever that you want to play?
That's a good question. I have to admit, this is for somebody that's cultivated. I think all the records that I've released, you could put in the jazz or fusion
Okay.
genre. Um, I still come back like if I had nothing else, it would be two bands. It would be either Rush or King Crimson.
Okay.
And that's probably a function of my age. But when I listen to what Neil Peart played on a lot of these records, it has gotten better with time. Like those performances have gotten better. They have aged well, I would say. And it's funny because I put on like, okay, perfect example. I had a student in yesterday. He's probably in like 6th or 7th grade. And we're talking about he's going to play a drum solo at this thing. He's at a concert he's going to be in. So we talked about how to construct this thing. Like, okay, just, we're going to make some scenes here. There's going to be a beginning, a middle, and an end. And I was trying to verbalize some things. And I said, all right, listen to this. And I put on the record is Exit Stage Left. I think it's Rush's second live record. It came out in like 82 or 83. And it has one of Neil Peart's signature recorded drum solos on it. And I put it on. Now this was recorded 30 years before this student was even born. Like totally, so it would be like me listening to something that was recorded in the 40s.
Yeah.
Or 30s or something. And as soon as this snare drum barrage of notes started, the young man's, his mouth just like dropped open. Like you could see the light bulb go on. And I'm like, all right, if this is relevant across 4 decades, and across 2 or 3 generations, then, it has a lot of validity for rockers. But my favorite band, hands down, is King Crimson. I think they did things that really pushed, they really set the pace for a lot of bands that came after them, for sure. And not commercially successful necessarily, but if you're familiar with them, that's my thing.
Yeah, I have that's a separate podcast, is how many bands that we probably listen to that aren't necessarily commercially successful.
I'd like to be on a guest on that one. Of course. Let me know when you're ready.
After a conversation such as this, my brain goes to one place, the West Wing. So I'll start with Sam Seaborn's "Good writers borrow from other writers, great writers steal from them outright." So with his permission, I'll steal from his boss, Toby Ziegler. There is a connection between progress of a society and progress in the arts. The age of Pericles was also the age of Phidias. The age of Lorenzo de' Medici was also the age of Leonardo da Vinci. The age of Elizabeth was the age of Shakespeare. And I'll go back and steal from Sam one last time. Education is the silver bullet. Education is everything. We don't need little changes. We need gigantic, monumental changes. Schools should be palaces. The competition for the best teachers should be fierce. They should be making 6-figure salaries. Schools should be incredibly expensive for government and absolutely free of charge to its citizens, just like national defense. This is where my brain goes when Bryan and I are talking about my generation, and I'm starting to get old, being the last to have access to a broad arts education. Yes, Bryan and I benefited from the music education, but we also learned to draw and paint and work in other mediums. We were allowed to find our thing. Sure, some of the impetus should be focused on making these things a priority in the home, but there needs to be more. As a product of public education, I see the value in it. Perhaps I got lucky, but perhaps I survived like the rest of my cohort, and we just hope the whole system isn't burned down by people more well off than the rest of us who don't intend to send their kids to public school to begin with. Education, when it is a national priority, is something special to behold. It's something that can move mountains, and the arts, especially arts education, can do the same. But we're missing out on generations who will never know they are great at painting, or the drums, or sculpture, or guitar, or poetry, or saxophone, or photography, because they never had access. Everyone should have access. If for no other reason, then access would give many more people an appreciation for just how hard these things are. A good photograph is still a good photograph, but a photograph that's a work of art is not just a single photo taken with a phone. A poem is not just random words on the page, and don't get me started on music and other forms of entertainment people take for granted, which are all based in the arts. The arts are important. If nothing else, you can remember that the next time you turn on a television series or watch a movie that has actors and a script and a director of photography, an editor, and graphic artists. The arts are your entertainment, and they are also best when done by humans, but that's another thing for another day. Thanks for listening to the Palmer Files episode 154, and now for the official business. The Palmer Files releases every 2 weeks on Tuesdays. If you're still listening, I encourage you to join the discussion. You can find all related ways to contact Bryan and myself in the show notes. You can learn even more about Bryan and his creative projects at thehouseoftuk.com. That's thehouseoftuk.com. Or for his legal work, tuklaw.com. Link in the show notes. The music for this episode was provided by Henno Heitur. Email can be sent to this show at thepalmerfiles@gmail.com. And remember, your home for all things Agent Palmer is agentpalmer.com. All right, Bryan, do you have one final question for me?
Yes, I do. Now, this can be as big or as specific as you want.
Okay.
This is cool being able to be on the other side of the table here. If you had one thing you could change about modern day life in general, what would it be and how would you change it?
I believe this has been asked of me before, many times on the show, and most of the time I gave the same answer. And I think I always like to continue answering this because it feels like the answer should evolve as time goes on.
Okay.
But I always keep going back to the same thing. So I would make the internet go back to dial-up. Like, I wouldn't get rid of the internet. I still think we need the internet, but I would make it so that, like, you needed to wait. And that patience would mean, maybe instead of firing off an email or Google search, you'll call a friend who might know, like, oh, Bryan might know the answer to this random trivia that's stuck in my head. And then I'd talk to you and we'd be social. And instead of just, what's that one lyric from that one Rush song about trees, right? Like, just call up Bryan, he might know. And I feel like, in respect to, I could still do this podcast. I could still have my blog. Selfishly, I still want to maintain those things, but I think you could probably do them on dial-up. I could probably render this podcast a little bit less kilobytes per second and it would still sound good and you'd be able to download it in 10 minutes, maybe not instantly, right? But like, I like that. And if it's not that, then I would completely just keep the internet exactly as it is. No smartphones ever. And again,
the dial-up thing never even occurred to me. That's a great answer because it addresses many different ills at the same time.
But if not, then I'm getting rid of smartphones. It's either that. Those are the two things. Because I think that the internet being tied to a place in your house is very, very helpful and healthy because most people will get out. And now people walking around on their cell phones think they're out and about. It's like, well, you're not really. But I still think dial-up's the way to go. I really do. I don't know. And you know what? Here's the thing. I'm probably guilty of it less than most people because I purposefully now leave my phone in other rooms. Because if
Yes.
it's not here,
I do that too.
I don't need it. It's fine. Like I don't, and the only thing I regret about that is that I am I'm a podcaster. I'm a talker. So like if somebody calls me, I want to be there to pick up, and I don't have a house phone. Like I just have the cell phone. And that's most people now. That's not even my generation. It's just most people don't have a house phone.
Right.
But I'm okay with a missed call or two to not be scrolling through whatever or mindlessly looking stuff up. And, you know, I don't know. I want to be more social. I want to talk to more people, not just for the podcast, but just in general. Like it's just, let's go out to lunch. Let's have a conversation. And then a lot of people like when I first got let go and went on to this trek of not knowing what the heck I'm going to do next, I was networking with a lot of people to try and figure out like what's next. And then I stopped networking with people because everybody would ask, what do you want to do? And I was like, well, I don't know. And apparently a lot of people hate that answer. But I would, there were a couple people I networked with more than once. And the difference between the people I only met with once and the people I met with twice or three times was, did they pick their phone up during lunch? It's just that simple. If you didn't pick your phone up, I'll have lunch with you again, and I'll pay every time because we're having a conversation. We're engaged. It's fun. But if you're on your phone, I don't care how important your business is. Like 10 years ago, your phone was at home.
Right. It's a, you know, we have, I think, slipped beyond the point where checking your phone or looking at your phone while you're sat down across from somebody, you know, whether it's coffee or whatever, that used to be an egregious breach of manners. Like you just didn't, it was something that was rude to do. And now, I don't know. I people do seem to be glued to these things, and I really try to. The one thing that I've been doing to force myself away from it is going back to physical books and reading. So instead of downloading it on Kindle, you know, I'll order a copy and I'll have the book in the house, and I'm going to go sit and read for 30 minutes or 45 minutes.
And maybe that's something you and I have in common, because I've been reading for a long time, but I have, with the exception that I'm a blogger and occasionally I'll get an advanced copy that's only an ebook or a PDF or whatever.
Right.
I prefer a physical book. I prefer,
100%.
Like, I don't know and I'll go one step further, and I've been a bit lazy on this front, but I need to do it, is, I play a lot of guitar, mainly because it's the easiest thing. It's easy to pick up an acoustic and just play. But I'm trying to, in my head, and I have a printer that works again, which I didn't have for a very long time. I want to build my own songbook. There are songs that I know how to play, right? The Weight by the band. I can play that, right? Like Don't Cry by Guns N' Roses. I can play that. But there are other songs that I can play that I just can't quite remember. And so, but I don't want to have to look it up. I don't want to have to stare at a screen. If I'm, you know, I have a guitar on every floor in my house at this point. And it's just like to have a song book that I could just grab, just put on the coffee table and just, okay, so now I can play like 15 of the Tom Petty songs that I always remember 3, but not all 4 of the chords for, right? Like just to have that in physical form would be great. I don't want to have to pull out my phone and scroll through it. You know,
there's a huge debate / education that needs to happen with creative people, I think. Primarily musicians, because they're the worst. Musicians are their own worst enemy professionally. From the standpoint of complaining about not making money and then doing things that sabotage live performance fees. You know, sometimes intentionally. It's absolutely shocking. But I saw Um, if I'm making records, I'm at least making a physical, at least a CD.
Okay. Yep.
I would love to make. I have a plan. I have a master plan at some point.
You're gonna
To go
remaster
back and
everything and make it as vinyl.
well, I already have the vinyl masters. I just need so for everything that I've recorded, I always got three masters: the
Okay.
CD version, the streaming version, and the vinyl version. They're different things. If you're not an audio engineer, uh, that's news. If you are an engineer, you know what I'm talking about. I
Yep.
don't know all of the specifics, but I do know that when I listen, when I A B C these, if you will,
Yeah.
I can hear
A difference.
the difference if
Okay.
I'm listening on the same system. But if I'm making a record, I want the photography to be beautiful. I want the packaging to be incredible. I want the quality of the paper on the inside to be great. The writing and the liner notes should be everything about it should be an experience
Yep.
and not just something that Spotify put in my AirPods.
That's fair.
Like, oh, you might like this. You might
So
like that.
I've been thinking about this recently because um, I've done two musical journeys. I'm on the second one right now where I picked
Okay.
like maybe 15 bands. I created a spreadsheet with all their albums and I listened to them in chronological order. So I get to the first one, like I get to see how the Beatles and the Stones and Led Zeppelin all kind of intermix, right? Like as an example, but there were like 15, 20 bands in that one. And I'm on my next one
Okay.
now. And I've been thinking about like I've actually created a Spotify playlist that's called Palmer's AM, which is basically my radio station, which is every album I find track perfect goes there.
Okay.
And the idea is I can shuffle it and know that I'm more likely to get some deep cuts because it's only based on album. It's not based on like this, that, and the other thing. But it got me thinking about how a lot of these albums that I put on this list that fills out this radio station, this fictional radio station, I don't own. And I've been thinking recently about, well, how do I want to own them? Do I want to own them in CD, which is technically my generation's vinyl? Do I want to go back and get the vinyl? I don't know, but I just know that there's a part of me that kind of wants to own it soon or find look, it's an expensive endeavor. There's so many albums. But
It is, but we've become used to this artificially low, what Spotify did was more damaging to the music industry and independent artists than any other series of factors combined. So
and what's
Spotify by itself has been more destructive to the lives of creative people than any other force by a lot. It's not even close.
and I've discovered that the album also died because of it. Because you can create a playlist with 3 pop hits and never listen to any of the rest of the album. And so people are not creating, maybe you are, maybe independent artists are, but are people out there still creating an album? Like, here's an experience from track 1 through track 10, 1, 2, 3, 4, like through, as opposed to just, I like track 5, and so that goes on my playlist.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. If you look back, look way back to the beginnings of the recording industry, most vinyl were singles,
Yeah.
right? There was one song on side A, there were 45s, and there was another song on side B. That was it.
Yep.
And then I think the album kind of evolved for industry reasons to try to generate more money, primarily more than anything else. And the commercial interests of some of the tech people out there created the Spotify's and other platforms of the world. And what we're left with are people that really want it. So in other words, if you're an artist, it's in a way, maybe it's a good thing. It weeds out a lot of, you know,
Filler.
yeah, it weeds out a lot of, like, if you don't really want to do this, you're not going to get past the hurdles. You got to finance the recording yourself. You have to pay for the production yourself. And then maybe you get, maybe maybe you break even. Maybe you lose money. I don't know. So there's a great book written by David Byrne of the Talking Heads called How Music Works.
Okay.
And if anybody's interested in the economics of all of this, now here's somebody, if you don't know who David Byrne is, or you don't know who the Talking Heads were, they were a successful band in the 80s, in the early mid 80s. They sold a lot of records. They did major tours. They did the whole thing. He had been to the top of the industry. So he published this book 2012.
Okay.
And in this book, he puts budgets in this book of this record. Here's what was spent on it. Here are all the line items. Here were the sales.
Wow.
Here was the end result. And he does that for a couple of small tours and a couple of records that he released as an independent, post Talking Heads part of his career. And it's really shocking. And I'm like, if this guy is barely getting through it, I don't know how, so you really have to want back to that concept of, you're a creative person because you are.
Yep.
And not maybe to make money. If that happens, that's great. But you're playing guitar because it has to come out of you. You're playing drums because you're compelled to do so by a force that you can't define. It just is, So I don't know if we addressed any of these questions for the audience to their satisfaction, but we'll find out, I suppose.